going to put our hook in the vise. This is an Umpqua X series. It's called a stubby T-hook, and I like this a lot. It's got a wide gap, and we're just going to use a basic 140 denier thread. This is in black. And put down our base layer from about the eye of the hook to the bend. And then we've got our first material, which is 2mm foam, and this particular foam is in purple, and I'm going to cut like a 3-inch strip and then cut that in half so we'll have enough for 2 flies. Now we're going to take that now 1.5-inch long strip, and you can see it's not super thick. I want it to be kind of thin just so that way the body is controllable, but from the back I'm just going to wind that foam up towards the hook eye. And foam is one of those materials that can be really annoying to work with, but once you get up to the eye, I do like 5 or 6 wraps, and then I wrap in front of the foam, and that's going to help lock this stuff into place. You could also use super glue or if you wanted to do that, but this particular time I'm not going to. So we've got this crazy long head. The butt of the fly is going to stay pretty much how it is. And we've got our next material, which is Semperfli's straggle string in dirty purple. And I like this material a lot. It's good for dry flies or even like nymph legs, that sort of stuff. Basically, if you imagine like that Estaz material, except it's got maybe 1/4 of the strands coming off of it. So it's good for making like dry fly bodies because it's not giving you this huge bulb. It's just kind of, it gets you that touch of color with some spare legs going here and there. And I'm going to tie that in from about the middle of the fly to the back. I'm going to wind my thread just to kind of give a good body. And now my thread is at my stopping point. So I take touching wraps with the straggle string, and I'm going to wind that up to my thread. So that just gives me kind of a visual indicator of when I need to stop wrapping, which is helpful to have. So once I get to the thread, I'm going to hold it to the top. And I'll just do 2 wraps over top of that, and then 2 wraps in front of that. And that, I did pretty tight wraps, but then we can cut off our excess. And you can see all the little legs. It's nothing that's kind of too crazy, but it's just enough in my opinion. So the next material is called CDC. This particular color I think is called Gray Dun or something like that. I got a giant Ziploc bag of it, and that's why it's so crazy. But I'm going to grab like 3 or maybe 4 fibers, and I'm grabbing them from the stem side, the bottom, and I'm just going to try to align the tips as best as I can. This can be kind of an annoying process. Get all that little fuzz and stuff. So how I typically align the tips is I pull from the bottom to get them as even as possible, and that's good enough for me. So we're going to go ahead and tie that in just a little bit past the foam butt that we have there. So I keep my thread exactly where it was with the purple, the stop, and I'm going to do 2 wraps right over top, do a third that's a little bit tighter, and if you like it, then cut off the stems or the excess material, and that's going to be our under wing material. It helps it with the flotation, but it also kind of darkens up the wing. So the next material is, this is X-Caddis fur. It's kind of hard to find right now in this darker color. Some fly shops have it, some don't, because it is a dyed material. But we take a small clump of that, we cut it, and we're going to go ahead and prep that in our stacker. So I grab it by the tips with my left hand, and then with my right hand I'll just kind of pull out any excess fibers, and then I take a little deer hair comb, or it's really just a lice comb, and I'm going to go through just the butt sections of that material, and it should be clean. Yep, so this is what we're removing, which is that under fur, that scraggly little stuff. And having that clean just makes the tying process a little bit easier to control. So now we go the tips of it into the stacker and stack it. And once we remove it with our right hand, you will see those are all pretty much perfectly even. And we are going to place those the exact same distance as the CDC and wrap our 2 times loose, kind of tighten that down. So if you don't have the darker color, that's okay, because the CDC, that is easy to find in a darker color. So that's really going to give you the tone that I like. And then we're going to do the hot spot, or the visibility post, with the deer belly, and this is yellow. You can use chartreuse, pink, white, whatever you can see the best. But I don't take a ton of this. It's just a smaller clump, and it usually does not have as much underfur, usually. So we'll just prep that the same way as the other one, and I'll do it super speed here. And I'm going to place those a little bit shorter than that X-Caddis hair. So just get that in. You can see it's kind of twisted at an angle, so with your right hand you can pull that up to align it and tighten down. And you'll see how much more the deer belly is going to, I guess, explode is one term you could use. And looks all nice and clean. So I'm going to come in with my scissors, and I'm going to just kind of bit by bit cut off the excess. If I was making like a caddis or something where this was the final product or the end, then you try and make it look clean and pretty. But this is all going to be covered in hackle and thread, so it doesn't have to be clean, it just has to be secure. And so we go through. If you see any stragglers, cut them, pull out the excess, and then we're going to wrap up those a little bit more. And so far we're looking good. I'm liking that. So you can see the profile from the underside there. It's pretty thin. Everything is stacked nice and right on top. And then we're going to take our hackle, and this is just a Coachman Brown size 12. I pulled it off of a big saddle that I have, but we're going to strip off some of those barbs to create a tying point. So you can see just a little tiny stem, and that's what we're going to tie in with. So I'm just going to place that on the side of the fly, and we're kind of going to stage this material. So you're going to tie it in and forget about it for a second. The next thing I always like to do too is add some super glue. This is just basic super glue. I think it's Zap-A-Gap. Put a little on the top, and that's going to help as we wrap in that hackle and these legs. It's going to help everything stay in place. But these are silly legs, and the color is a brown barred. But for whatever reason, it has kind of a purple hue. These are from Nature's Spirit. So that's what I've been using on these a little bit. I've also used the Montana Fly Company legs. Those ones are like a round rubber, and I like those too because you can get them in a lot of different colors, purple or yellow or whatever. But fold those in half once and cut them in half. So this is enough for 2 flies. And I pre-cut them because that's just a little bit faster for me. So I'm going to hold that in right in the middle and wrap it in just like that. So our feather or hackle is going off the back, and now we have flies, the legs that are on the fly on one side, and I'll go on with the other side here. And that super glue is going to help hold that in as well. As long as you work somewhat quickly, that helps those stay in place. And that's pretty much where I like those back legs. So I don't know if I'm going to trim those at all. Now we've got our hackle feather, and I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping it. And I should have moved my thread up to the stopping point, but I did not. So you'll probably see how the hackle is going to start going crazy a little bit, and that's because my thread is not at the upper portion, or my stopping point where it should be. It won't be too bad though, so I'll keep wrapping. And then I'm going to trap that. And I can tell the super glue has grabbed it. That's why I didn't stop, because the super glue has a hold of that already. And I'm pretty happy with that so far. So as long as your legs are going the right way, you go in and cut off the excess. And then I'm going to, with my left hand, pull all of those fibers and everything back to expose the hook eye, which you can kind of see. Put a couple wraps behind that. And I will grab my whip finishing tool, if I can find it. And I'm going to whip finish. And we're pretty much to the end of the fly here. It's a great one for supporting nymphs if you do like throwing a dry dropper or anything like that. And I'm just going to do one and cut it. Don't cut your legs. You got that. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim off the front bit of foam. And you can cut that kind of tight. And there we've got it. I don't really know what it is. It's kind of like a 409. It's kind of like a never sink caddis, but somebody on Instagram called it a dirty purple, and I kind of like that name. So we're going to go with that. You can trim those front legs a little bit if you want. And I'll just make them even, which it pretty much were. But yeah, that's it right there. Really easy to see. Brook trout love it. So if you're looking for a pattern like this, there you go. The dirty purple. And we've got all the stuff to tie this in the shop. So if you're interested, you can stop by or send us a message or anything like that. And have a great day.